In this video, we will learn about naming notes on a piano. We will also explore how the notes on the piano relate to the notes on our bass and treble staves. Okay, so let's take a look at our keyboard here. Now, to find the note C, you take a look at the grouping of black notes. You find the group of 2 black notes and go immediately 1 white note to the left. That note will be C. Then from there we can use our musical alphabet to fill in the rest of the notes. So going up the alphabet we would have D, E, F, G, back to A, B, C, and going the other way we go down the musical alphabet. So B, A, now we loop back to the top of it to G, F, E, D, and C. So that's how we can figure out what the white notes are called. Okay, so in one of our previous videos we just learned about how sharps and flats affect notes. So here you can see again that we have all of our notes named on the piano. So if we go up from a C, right here, if we were to go up 1 semitone, we would end up at the note C sharp. So if we had a C and we put a sharp in front of it, we'd go up the semitone to the note C sharp. Now if we went from our D and we went down a semitone, we'd also get to the note D flat. So it sounds the same. If we were to play that note, it would be the exact same note. However, depending on which direction we approach it from, we have a different name for it. So this note is both C sharp and D flat at the same time. Alright, if we were to go up from our D a semitone, we'd get to D sharp. If we were to go down a semitone from E, we'd get to E flat. So that note is both D sharp and E flat. A note that sounds the same that has 2 different names, those 2 different names are called enharmonic equivalents. Okay, now what happens if we don't have a black note in between? Well, if you were to go up a semitone from E, you'd get to F, or we might call it E sharp. Now if you were to go down a semitone from F, E could also be known as F flat. And the same thing works if we were to deal with B and C. So if you were to go up a semitone from B, it would be C, but sometimes we would also call it B sharp. So B sharp is the enharmonic equivalent of C, and C flat is the enharmonic equivalent of B. Alright, and now you can see on each of these black notes you have 2 names. For this one we have F sharp and G flat, we have G sharp and A flat, A sharp and B flat. Each of these pairs again are called enharmonic equivalents because the notes it's the same note but it has 2 different names. Alright, so now that we know how to name notes on the keyboard, let's look at how those note names correspond to the notes written on the bass and treble staves. Okay, so I want you to look at this note right here, the note that is the first ledger line above our bass clef staff, as well as the first note or the first ledger line below our treble clef staff. That note is a C. So if we were to count up from our top line in the bass clef, you'd have A, B would be the note right above it, and C is our first ledger line. Same as if we were to go from our bottom line here on the treble clef, which would be E, down to the note which is in the space is D, to our first treble clef ledger line, which is C again. Okay, the reason I'm emphasizing this is that note is known as middle C. It corresponds with the C on the piano, that is the 4th C. We call it C4. What that means is that if you were to look at a piano and find the C that is the farthest to the left or the lowest, and you would find each C after that, it would be the fourth C on the keyboard. Again, this is called middle C. Alright, so now we're going to put in the rest of our notes in our bass and treble clef. So you can see here that this note is a C, D, E, and that those notes go up to B. We hit middle C, and we transition off to our treble clef notes. Okay, just to show you how those correspond with the keyboard, we'll add in some arrows. So you can see here that middle C lines up here, and D continues on E, F, and going in the other direction we go down the musical alphabet into our bass clef notes, each note corresponding with a note on a keyboard above and below middle C. Okay, now let's take a look at something here. If we had our bass clef and we went up with ledger lines, so if we have our C, which is again the first ledger line above the bass clef, our middle C, and if we went up to the next ledger line note, we'd write it in as a D. That is the D that is above middle C. We write in our next one, which would be a line, which is E, F, G, and so forth. Now, the reason why typically we would transition over to the treble clef is to avoid using these ledger lines. Now, the same thing would work if we were to go in the opposite direction. Alright, so let's get rid of the bass clef notes and see what happens when we go in the opposite direction. Alright, so if there is our middle C, let's start adding in the ledger lines in the other direction. So if we put in the one that is our first ledger line is middle C, we go down one, that is the B. Again, if this is in our treble clef, that is the B below middle C. We add in our next ledger line, which is an A, G, F, and again, the reason we would usually transition and start writing notes in the bass clef here is so that we can avoid ledger lines. Now, if we're only using a couple ledger lines and going back up, we would stay in the one clef. But if we were going to consistently be down in many, many ledger lines, it would be a good idea to switch clefs. Alright, so let's bring up our notes again and just see one last time. So now that we've kind of looked at that, understand how the notes transition from the bass clef, cross middle C into the treble clef seamlessly.